Welcome back to The Line. This week, the Albuquerque Journal reported that the Albuquerque Public Schools and the Teachers Union denied the paper's request for teacher lesson plans under the State Inspection Public Records Act, or IPRA as it's known. Now, APS and the union said the lesson plans are intellectual property. Keep that noted. We're going to talk about that. And should be considered trade secrets, which would make them exempt under IPRA. Sophie, I got to go right to you with the attorney at the table here. That's a very interesting defense. In quotes, defense.
But I might put the quotes around interesting. It is an interesting defense, the idea of trade secrets. Trade secrets really exist in the context of competition.
Right.
So if APS is making the statement that we are competing, and on some level, I think that they are, and they believe that they are. They are competing with the private education sector. But if they're making the case that this is a competitive advantage that they have, their lesson plans, I think that might be a tough one in the courts.
Interesting.
The intellectual property issue that teachers bring up is also very interesting and one that started to get discussed. And that's the question of whether a teacher really owns their lesson plans. And that is largely determined by the types of contracts that they have with APS. I haven't seen those contracts, so I don't know. But if APS says we're hiring you and part of your job is to create these lesson plans, then APS probably owns them.
Let me read you a quote from Rigo Chavez, who is the spokesperson for APS, Eric, and I want you to react to this. The teachers' lessons plans are maintained and held by teachers in their private records and are not maintained or held on behalf of the school or school district and are thus not subject to the act, what Sophie was just talking about. There's an interesting setup here. If you think about where teachers are coming from, one of the last autonomous bits they have in their lives are lesson plans. You've made lesson plans. I know for a fact you've made a bunch. I bet we all have. I have as well. It's one of the few things your creativity, your background, your sense of anticipation, why is that not intellectual property? Why is that not a one-time from that one teacher piece of information that should be protected?
I think there's two issues here. One is absolutely that, right? The really good teachers who are trying to be creative and trying to use the latest sort of technology and the latest thinking on developing curriculum and lesson plans. Those are the teachers we should be supporting and really encouraging in their work.
Right.
In a time when we're telling them exactly the opposite in terms of policy, homogenization, testing, you're going to be evaluated by how much you stay within the box.
That's right.
This is sort of, I think, a pushback that's partially about the intellectual property, but I think there is a certain amount of skepticism among educators, good educators. What is this really about? Is this really about yet another argument against teachers being the problem? And frankly, there are real issues if you develop curriculum, as some of us have, lesson plans. It's easy for people to pick that off and use it for private education and so on. And there is a lot of value. Again, people think teachers go into the classroom. My wife's an educator, and I've been an educator. Go in the classroom, you sort of do your thing, you read through the rote curriculum. Yeah, those are the teachers that are, some people do that. If you're spending hours and hours and you're online and you're reading, trying to figure out what's really going to work for this particular group of kids, that's something we should be supporting. And if it means protecting what they come up with, I think we should protect it.
Bridget Russell, Sophie makes a good point about the money involved as a sort of a barometer of whether things should be protected or not. But there are such things out there as sites that broker lesson plans for teachers for money. You can earn money if you have a creative lesson plan out there. Does that not fit under the rubric of free market?
Well,
and
here's
should
the
be
thing.
protected?
I would make a distinction, and it's been 25 years since I've been a classroom teacher at the K-12 level.
Yeah.
I would make a distinction between lesson plans and curriculum.
Okay.
So if a teacher develops curriculum, then that's intellectual property, absolutely. But if the principal is saying, give me your lesson plans, and the teacher is supposed to give bullet points of what he or she's going to cover, I think that's public records.
That's interesting. Tom, your thought on that?
Wow, I have so many thoughts on this. So, first off, with all due respect to educators, the fact that anybody trying to say that these are trade secrets is bogus.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. Coca-Cola, the secret formula for Coke, that's a trade secret. Okay, we're talking about how do we move the needle in public education. And if somebody has found the way to move the needle, my gosh, let's celebrate how that happens and let's celebrate that educator as we do, as I think we do celebrate educators. I think this is just a really bad and lame attempt to, make it sound a lot more complicated than it is.
Meaning,
Okay?
are you saying from the teacher's side of it, they're making it bigger than it actually?
Well, I think APS,
Okay.
I don't know why APS is choosing to make this an issue, because to the average person, it doesn't pass the smell test. It's just like, what do you mean education are trade secrets? I, as a parent, can go in and ask the teacher,
Sure.
what is your lesson plan? And they
Right.
will tell me. That
Sure.
is not a trade secret. And if anybody ever said that it was, then I would play that bogus card.
Let me throw a little thing here. Let's get back to how this story came to the surface,
Yeah.
and that is you got a newspaper asking for from different districts who are performing quite differently for lesson plans to be able to compare to see if kids in the same district are getting treated equally. Fair
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
However, do teachers not have a point that these things could be misconstrued once they're in the press?
Absolutely. And here's the reason why. And when I was with APS, this was something that really caught my mind.
Gotcha.
Does an A at Polk Middle School equal an A at Desert Ridge Middle School?
Gotcha.
And I think that's the argument that the Albuquerque Journal was trying to make.
Right.
The answer is plain and flat out, no. You have different, everybody's at different levels.
Right.
And, we need to be able to place more of an emphasis on resources available at Polk Middle School.
Right.
Just because of the challenges faced by the youth that are in trying to learn.
That's right.
Very different set of circumstances in the South Valley than there is in the far Northeast.
That's a
And I
great
think if
point.
this,
Yep.
if this were a researcher, or if this was someone who's genuinely trying to figure out what is the best way to approach the certain schools socioeconomically and so on, that's not who's asking. Who's asking is the publication of record in the state that has consistently blamed teachers for every ill that's wrong with our education system. So if I were a teacher and I were being asked, we want to know what you're doing so that, again, people don't do enough of this research on the coverage of education. This is a sort of an agenda, an anti-teacher agenda, and so understandably they're concerned about like how is this going to be used, And I think it gets to the whole underappreciation for teachers. People think this is sort of a job that folks come in, they don't have any training, they don't put any extra work into it. The good teachers, the teachers we want to encourage, are exactly the teachers we should be encouraging and protecting when they come up with something really good. And I don't think it's about the intellectual property. I think it's about this war on teachers and blaming teachers for everything that's wrong,
we asked
for
them to be-
disinvestment in our schools, for all these, for over-testing.
That's right.
And when did teachers, my own experience is the teachers were never the problem.
Yeah.
It was bureaucracy, it was
Yes.
underfunding,
Right.
it was social ills, it was lack of nutrition, it was community issues. But for some reason, the right has done a great job of blaming teachers
Sure.
for everything wrong with our schools.
Sure. So for this quick pivot here, we've got some testing going on in our state right now. Very interesting
Yes,
set of
the-
circumstances. We've got protests in Santa Fe. Kids at Capitol High saying they're not having it. Teachers are having a tough time with this. The park test's coming up. What's your sense of where we sit right now?
It's stunning to hear students say, we're taking 8 weeks of classroom time to prepare for these park tests.
Right.
And yeah, you know what? When you graduate and you're a grown-up, every once in a while there'll be a test. But the point that the students and teachers are making is that this is not really educationally relevant. That this level of testing that we now see in the schools has become sort of a means unto itself. And the point has been made as well that a tremendous amount of our school's budget, and therefore our state's budget, is going toward these for-profit testing entities.
Yes.
And so, yes, we need to get a handle on things, but this is getting way out of hand, the amount of testing that we're seeing.
Interesting, Bridget. I got caught by a quote in Santa Fe, New Mexico, by an old school teacher who says this park testing really sort of fits what we did in the 60s. You had something you had to look at, you had to think about, it wasn't just a multiple choice thing. I went to the actual test site and just kind of breezed through the 11th grade deal. And I got to tell you, it was very interesting to read this half a chapter of this book. You had to sit down and really think about what you had just read. Is there a problem here that just needs time to sort out? Maybe this kind of testing is good for everybody at the long.
There's the issue of the tests, and then there's the issue of the standards. And you're
Gotcha.
talking, I think, about the Common Core State Standards,
Yep.
which I know a lot of people interesting in New Mexico how it sort of cuts across party lines.
That's
But
right.
nationally, it's people on the right saying, "Oh my God, it's national standards. They're trying to dictate what." I've read, goodly chunks of the Common Core State Standards, and they're good. They are good. I mean, and they do measure critical thinking, and they do measure comprehension that goes deeper. The problem is how you teach that. Okay?
Yes.
When I was a math teacher, my kids didn't get the train leaves Chicago and the other one leaves Kansas City going, and I would have to, there'd be 8 problems in the book.
Half
and they
our
do
audience
all the
just
problems.
shivered at the memory
right.
of
And the kids, their eyes were glazing over. I'd have to write 30 more of them and then have them do them for 4 more days.
Wow.
It took me a week to do a 1-day lesson on certain things like that. And Common Core State Standards problems are like that. When I look at my daughter's math book and then they have the little CCSS in the margin, this is a Common Core problem. Okay, well, it takes us 45 minutes for me to step her through it, but for her to get it, to really get it, I'd have to write 7 more of them, and she'd have to do them on her own. And I don't think there's time in the school day to teach to that level of, for that
And that's the
quality
bit
of pedagogy.
that is yet to be sorted out, I think, isn't it? In the classroom, on the ground, how this all is taught and learned and all that kind of thing.
Whether
Now,
these are the
please.
things we want taught.
That's right.
Whether
That
these
critical
are
thinking,
actually.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think that there's critical thinking, but back in our day,
Please.
it was the Iowa Skills Test, California Skills Test, ACT, SAT. Here's what really bothers me about this whole thing is that students are being used as basically the weapons. Why aren't the teachers saying, you know what? We're just going to do this. Protesting isn't going to make it go away. When you get a job, if you don't like the assignment, you don't walk out and protest. You do the job. They need to be able to do this stuff.
Interesting. Going to hold it right there. Up next, we ask the line panelists right here, if it matters, that lawmakers who received donations from the storefront lending industry then voted to table the legislation in committee. We're going to unpack that.